With me today is Travis Hornsby, founder. What's your official title now? Officially.
Founder of Student Loan Planner.
Founder of Student Loan Planner. I didn't know if you preferred to be called founder, CEO,
Sure.
something, whatever, right? No, but thank you so much for being here. We're recording live at FinCon, Portland, Oregon. So I know we were talking off camera before. You and I, we cover a lot of the same topics or different sides of the same topic, if you will. But I know that you have been doing a lot of content around the big, beautiful bill and its anticipated or potential effects on graduate and professional schools and things like that. So I guess my question to you first is if you could take a moment for the audience to define graduate versus professional school, just so make sure that everybody understands, like, what are we talking about here?
I mean, I think that if you think about a degree that's required to obtain to practice, it's basically a professional degree program. Not in every circumstance, but it's a pretty good rule to use. And then, a graduate program is something that is a degree after undergrad that you're not required to get to practice. So something like MBA, you're not required to get an MBA to be a business person, right? So that's going to be a graduate degree program. You're not required to get a master's, well, you might be in some situations, but you're not required to get a master's in teaching, to be a teacher, except in certain states, right? So that's like the gist is, if you have to get a JD to be a lawyer, well, that's a professional degree. If you have to get an MD to be a physician, then that's a professional degree. So the reason why there's a distinction is because grad loans are going to have a $20,500 per year limit, and professional degree loans are going to have a $50,000 per year limit. So that's a pretty big difference.
Right. Yeah, which is a far cry from what it is today. And I hear the stories, as I'm sure you do, and this is what you deal with, right? People will say, like, oh, I graduated college with like $400,000 in debt. But they took on that debt so they could go to the top medical schools or the dental schools that carry hefty price tags. I mean, they're not cheap. But now with the new limits for both grad school and professional school, what's your opinion about what the outlook and the landscape going to look like in the coming years? Once this law is signed into law, but once it really gets going, right? I think sometimes people aren't really feeling it because the limits aren't in place necessarily yet. But what do you think is going to happen?
I mean, I think a lot of schools are going to close. I think they have to close because of the math. If you think about the cost structure of higher education, they've been able to lean on unlimited borrowing for 20 years, right? So if you have a graduate or professional school program and you're trying to compete with other schools, what you've done is you've leaned into Grad Plus and said, well, they'll pay it. Students will pay it because they can pay income-based repayment. So schools have loaded up on buildings, faculty, administration, all the things that you need to be a competitive program to attract students in an era where there's unlimited borrowing. But now when you go to limited borrowing, now the competitive edge schools are going to have is not how nice is your gym, how nice are your facilities, how recently was your building built. Now it's going to really be cost. People weren't really choosing their graduate degree based on cost as recently as this fall. Right. And next fall, people are going to have to choose their graduate program based off ROI and cost, which is a very different way to do it.
And so do you anticipate, I know we were talking about this earlier, but the impact on the private student loan market? So obviously, again, with federal direct borrowing that's limited, if family students need to borrow more, it might fall on the parents, right? But I know you and I were talking about some of the anticipated side effects of the private student loan market. Talk to us a little bit about that and kind of where you see some trends there.
Well, the private student loan market is usually co-signed. That's the problem, right? Like, it's usually co-signed by parents. And for graduate school, professional school, that's a lot of times not an option. Like, parents are either getting older, needing to retire themselves, or a lot of parents have the attitude that undergrad is with me and graduate school is on your own, right? That's a very, very common, I would say the average parent probably has that attitude, right?
Right, and I hear that a lot from my clients.
And the reason is because the parents know that they've got to make sacrifices to help pay the kids' college, but they're ready to stop those sacrifices to focus on their own retirements, their own finishing up their careers and such. And so I just think that the market is not built for that right now. The market is built for kids to be able to take out unlimited loans for themselves and to not have to ask parents for anything. And so suddenly you're going to have this awkward period where everybody's going to need to get private loans. A lot of people won't be able to do it without parent co-signers. And the question is, are the parents going to say yes?
Right. And even if they want to say yes, they might not be able to, right? Like either their credit score might not be good, or they might not have the capacity from an income standpoint.
Right.
So, okay. So I guess if you have, let's say, if you're aware of a family where their current student is in college already, but headed towards either professional school or graduate school, what's your best piece of advice for them right now? If they're going to be heading on to that next level in the next year or two.
I mean, I mean, if you're going to professional school the next year, that's your question.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to professional school the next year, I think you got to really focus on going to the cheapest quality program that you can go to, because you're going to have to take out federal loans and you're going to have to take out private if you can't meet the need with just the federal loans, and that's going to be costly to pay back. So I think that people have to be thinking, okay, if I want to be a lawyer, do I want to go to big law or not? If I want to go to big law, then I got to go to one of the top programs, and I want to go to the best ranked program that gives me the best shot at being in big law, right? But if I don't necessarily need to be in big law, well, then I need to say, what's the cheapest way that I can become a quality attorney, right? And that's probably going to be your in-state flagship public university if they have a law school, right?
Yep.
And so those are going to become way more competitive. The overall number of people entering these professions is going to be smaller. And, I think that if you want to be a medical professional, like a physician, a dentist, whatever, yeah, people say there's different programs that you should go to have certain rankings or chances to get into certain specialty programs. But ultimately, I don't really see that much of a difference. Like, I see people get top residencies and get into top specialties, that they just have to become an MD or a DO. They just have to get the degree to have, and have good scores wherever they go to end up in the best residency programs. So I think that people maybe need to think more about, what is the cost that I'm incurring to do this? And, there are some personal things you would want to decide. Like, if you have loved ones you want to be close to, if you have a certain part of the country that you want to end up in long term, like, maybe it is worth it to take on a little bit of extra debt to go live in the place you want to live. Like, that's a reasonable decision. I think what's unreasonable is taking out, the sticker price, the full sticker price for the high cost private universities that was funded through Grad Plus. I don't think that the universities are going to be able to even ask people to do that.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see the net impact, because some of the top tier universities, both at the graduate as well as undergraduate level, right? There's such a name, there's such a draw for a lot of families, because people are talking about like legacies and the reputation and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how this all changes, because now, like you said, do you want to pay for that reputation or that ranking, especially if you have to borrow beyond the federal limits, go into the private student loans, right? Maybe that's on the parents as co-signers. Now it's impacting their finances for X number of years in the future. Yeah, I agree with you. I think we're going to see some sort of shakeout, but it's going to be a ride no matter what.
Well, and I mean, what happens when there's a shakeout? I mean, are people going to have to change schools? Are they going to have to transfer credits? I mean, nobody knows. Right. And all the universities that I've talked to and all the students that I've talked to, professionals I've talked to in the higher ed space, lenders, nobody has a clue right now. Nobody has a clue what's going to happen, what to do. Schools and lenders are having preliminary conversations, but they don't have a plan. And so when you don't have a plan and you've been doing something a certain way for 20 years, big bureaucratic companies, organizations don't change overnight. Even in a few months, they're going to be presented with this problem of, we usually have 300 dental students that enroll, and we only have yeses for 100 of them, at the current pricing. What do we do, right? And I think these conversations are going to be driven from a point of, oh, shoot, then, let's plan ahead in most cases.
Absolutely. Travis, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time. Always great to see you at FinCon, right?
Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, so again, folks, if you want more information, you can follow Travis Hornsby on the various social media platforms. I know he's active on LinkedIn. His firm is Student Loan Planner, so I think studentloanplanner.com, right? I think it's just the website. And again, as always, please make sure you're connecting with me on my socials, as well as subscribing to the podcast. It's available on all the major podcast platforms, including YouTube. As always, thanks so much. It's awesome being here, FinCon Portland, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.